we are going to do a little Canvas gradebook checkup as conferences are coming up. We thought it might be a good idea to just kind of review things and make sure everything's set up the way we want it to, and just give you a couple of tips, and then also give some time for questions and answers. We'll send out the slides to everybody and the recording as well later. So if you didn't grab the slides right now, we can do that later too. They're not super profound or anything. They just look nice, if I may say so, and give you a couple of tips on where to start. So first things first, though, Cara and I are in a new position this year, and I just wanted to briefly explain what that position is. So we are blended learning coordinators, and we're still here to help. We're still around. I know some of you don't see me as often as you normally would, but if you have questions like how do I use something in Canvas, or how do I set things up, what's the best tool for this assignment that I'm working on, do we have resources for something, do we have a student video on how to do this or that, we're still here for answering those kinds of questions. So you can email blc@shockb.k12.mn.us, and that goes to both Cara and I. And the nice thing about that is sometimes one of us are busy and the other person can step in. We also are getting help desk tickets now this year, so people can put in a help desk ticket, they'll route them to us, and then we can respond to it. And then lastly, if you want to book our time and just pop on a quick Google Meet, you can do that at bit.ly/bookblc. We have that in our email signature as well. So if you get an email from us, you'll see that down at the bottom that you can book our time and schedule a meeting. So here's what we're going to do briefly in the next 20 minutes. We're going to go over what's called the grading scheme, which is basically the grading scale to make sure that you have the correct one selected. Then we're going to look at something called assignment groups, which are your graded categories if you weight your grades. Then we're going to look at missing assignments and how we need to set something up in the gradebook, but then also making sure that we're not marking things missing that are missing. Robin, you want to mute?
Okay.
And then we'll give you a few tips and do a little Q&A session to finish it off. Okay, so if you want to kind of follow along with me during this, I think that's probably the best way to go. If you want to kind of split your screen and put the Google Meet call on one side of your screen and a Canvas window and check one of your courses live, you can do that, or you can just follow along with me. It's kind of up to you on what's going to work best for you. I know that my slides might get a little bit small if they're on one side of the screen, but if you feel comfortable setting it up this way, this is my recommendation. And hopefully you're all ready to go. I'll give you a second to get that set up. And there goes my caffeine for the day. All right, so I just wanted to point this out, that the default grading scheme for Canvas is very similar to our grading scale. So you might not even notice that you have the default set up in your course. That's what happens if, for example, if you either didn't use the template that we put in Canvas Commons this year, or maybe you copied a course that you used a couple of years ago and it pulled the setting in for that. The grading scale is just a tiny bit different. So you'll notice that like everything for like a minus is like A minus is 94% to 90 on the default, whereas our scale it's 93 to 90. An F is slightly different. It's all just kind of like 1% off. So to check that and just to see that it's correct, what you do is you open up the settings in one of your courses, so bottom left button, and then you'll scroll down a little bit to a place where it says grading scheme, and you can either check the box where it says enable course grading scheme or view grading scheme, depending on if you have the setting correct. And then what you should see is a grading scheme that looks like what I have up here on the right. It's called the Master Grading Scale 6 through 12. I will note that there are some teachers that are using a standards-based grading scheme at the middle school level, but typically everybody's using the one on the right unless you know otherwise. So I'll give you a second to locate that and just double check it and see that it's right. Are we ready to move on? Got a thumbs up there, okay. That one's pretty quick. If you use the template, it's already set up for you. Any questions about that? Practicing my wait time? All right, here we go. The next thing is the assignments groups, or assignment groups. And that's your graded categories in your gradebook. And I'm pointing this out because this is actually a screenshot of a student's grades that I pulled up. And basically every time you're making an assignment, you'll want to double check that you put things in the correct assignment group and that things aren't sitting out in a category such as imported assignments. So whenever you pull things in from another course, it automatically puts it in an imported assignments assignment group. And you have to tell it which category it belongs in. So I would do that as you're editing and setting up your assignments. But the other piece to it is when a student goes in and to look at their grade, they will see every single one of the assignment groups that you have created. So if you have duplicates of some, or if you have the actual, where it says imported assignments, you'll want to delete those and get them out of your gradebook because it can be a little confusing to a student. I would set mine, if you're doing formative and summative, just like in this screenshot here, that's great. And then if you have, maybe you have an ungraded assignment group, you could rename your imported assignments to ungraded, but you just want to make sure that they're calculating properly, that they're in the right assignment group. So the way to do that is you want to click on assignments, and then in that upper right-hand corner, there are 3 dots where you can check to see that you're weighting your assignment groups correctly and putting in the correct percent. And then also you can choose to delete the graded or these assignment groups in here or rename them if you would like. Any questions about that piece?
I'm just jotting down a few notes.
Eric, how I do have a group, a category in there I want to get rid of. How do I get rid of it? I mean, I don't see just a delete category button.
So I'll show you real quick. I'll go to a course here. And so this one here has summative, formative, and imported. And what you might notice is like, oh, I've got a ton of stuff in the imported assignments group here. I don't know if this one does. Yeah, this one has a bunch. What you can do is click on these 3 dots over here, and you can move the contents of that group into, let's say I know that all of the things or almost all of the things are formative. I can just dump them all in there. And now they're in that group. And then this one here is empty. And I can then delete it. I think if there's something in it and you delete it, it actually does delete those assignments. So you just want to double check that. And then, yeah, you can click edit if you want to just rename it.
Yep, I got it. I was one screen further than that and I missed this screen, so.
Got it. Yeah, no problem. All right. Oh, there we go. The next thing I want to talk about is missing assignments. So by default, Canvas does not penalize late work at all. So as an example, you could have 20 assignments in the gradebook, and if the student turned in the very first one and got 100% on it, at the end of the quarter, they have 100% in your course, even though they didn't turn in 19 assignments. So what you need to do is tell Canvas how to treat something that's marked as missing. So in order to set that up, what you do is you go to the grades in your course. In the upper right-hand corner is a little settings gear, and then you will want to set what's called the late policy. So you check that box where it says automatically apply a grade for missing submissions, and then you either put in 0 or 50% depending on your department's policy. Any questions about that piece? Really? We're good? Just breezing through this. Okay. One other thing to note about this is that automatically applying a grade, for example, if you take an assignment from last year and you import it into this quarter, you obviously had a due date for it that's occurred last school year. It's going to mark everything missing. And so my recommendation would be whenever you're importing things from a previous course, that you check the box to remove dates when you're importing, because then there isn't a due date attached to it, and you don't have to worry about accidentally making it marked missing automatically by Canvas, and then you have to go through each individually and turn the missing off and turn it back to none, which can be time consuming. All right, one other thing I want to point out about missing assignments is that, I'm looking at 2 columns here in the gradebook. We have a student that has a 0 out of 5, and that's fine if that's the score that they earned. They earned a 0, but it also kind of means that it's over and done with. It's not telling the student this is something that they can submit. So if you want them to be able to submit it to earn credit, you would want to simply mark it as missing, and then it does display it as a 0 or 50%, depending on your policy of how we just set up your late policy. But we want to definitely flag it as missing if it's missing and we want them to do something about it. If we don't want them to turn it in because the time has passed for them to be able to submit it, you would want to make sure that it's no longer saying that it's a missing assignment, so that you go in and you change the status of the assignment to none instead of missing. So on the right, you can see what's called the grading tray. So when you click on any individual cell in the gradebook, it has a little arrow that points to the right, and then it opens up this grading tray. And the nice piece about that is you can just use that to kind of move through your gradebook quickly and then change the status of assignments and grade them as well. Any questions about that missing piece there? All right, we'll keep rolling. Next, we have a few tips for you. And Cara, if I say something wrong or leave something out, be sure to let me know.
No problem.
So I'm going to start with the gradebook view options. So one of the things that I always recommend is that you go into the view options within the gradebook and you turn on the filters, especially for sections, if you teach multiple sections of a course. That means that you can look at individual classes one at a time. You're not looking at every single kid that's enrolled in your course. I also like to do the filter for modules, because if you're trying to just grade like a certain segment of assignments and you don't want to see all of the things you're doing throughout a quarter, then it's just easier to filter by the module, and then you can see just that small piece of the grades. One other thing that you can do within the gradebook, maybe I'll just demonstrate this one. Let's see, where are my grades at? There we go. Yeah, so you can see up here, I've got assignment groups, I've got modules and the sections. Another thing you can do is if you scroll all the way to the right, you find that total grade over there. You can move it to the front, and then it appears next to the students' names, which I think is a little bit easier to look at, and easier to target, like, oh, this student, we need to work with them a little bit on getting that grade up. Let's see, what else do I want to say about that? Oh, and I mentioned this before, but that grading tray is this thing over here. It allows you to move between students and even going to another assignment. You can grade it, edit the status here, and then also leave a comment down here as well. It's just a little bit easier than trying to arrow through this and change the status of the assignments, I think. And back to our tips here. Got a few other ones. Make this a little bigger. Another thing that I wanted to point out was that when you are, so a few teachers are doing kind of standards-based grading within Canvas and like to display, descriptors for an assignment, exemplary, proficient, developing, that kind of thing. You can actually create your own grading scheme, similar to how we had that grading scale that we looked at before. And you can name them kind of whatever you would like. And then those things actually display in the gradebook if you choose to display your assignments as a letter grade as opposed to points. So a few people, when you look through their gradebook, it says, developing, exceeds, meets, whatever your descriptors are. And we do have descriptors set up for everyone if they want to use them. And it's roughly based on a 4-point scale. So you can actually set that up on a per assignment basis. Let's see. Another question we get quite a bit is if you have something that you don't want to go in the gradebook, but you want to provide resources to students, you can choose for the assignment to not be graded, and then it doesn't create a column in the gradebook. I think, for anything that's ungraded that you did in class, that you're not expecting them to submit something, I would put in not graded. Or if you want them to submit and you want to just check it real quick right after class, you could switch it back over to not graded after. And again, it takes the column out of the gradebook. And then we talked a little bit about marking assignments as missing. One thing to note is that if you use an external tool like a Flipgrid or a Google Cloud assignment or something like that, you actually have to mark those missing. Canvas doesn't know that they're missing automatically like it does with file uploads. I'm going really fast. Any questions about those things so far? No? Okay. The last thing is something that I think is actually a really nice feature of Canvas. I don't see a ton of people using it, but I think it can be really useful. So I'm going to actually demo it really quickly. It's called hiding and posting grades. So what you can do is essentially, if you don't have time to grade something, you can hide the grades from students. And then when you're ready for the students to see their scores, you can post it. And this is nice when also, some of us don't like that students get like that 50% the second something is due. And what this does is it allows you to, maybe say students had to turn something in today, and normally it would just be at midnight, everybody would get it marked as missing who hadn't submitted it yet. And then if you had the 50% policy turned on, for example, they got 50% of the points. You can choose to hide those scores, and then all they see is their status. They see either that it's missing or that it's turned in. They don't see their score until you as the teacher choose to post their score. And so that's located over any assignment in the gradebook. You can basically say, you know what, I want to hide the grades on this because I don't want students to see it yet. I'm not done grading it. And then it also gives the students an alert that the teacher is still grading that assignment. And I think that's, especially if it's something that's going to take you a while to grade, I think it's a nice thing to put out there that, yep, your kid turned it in, but I'm working on it. I'm still working on grading it. So then this little eyeball pops up over any of the grades that are hidden or need to be posted yet. Cara, what else did I forget?
Hello. I think that's pretty thorough. Those are the things that I often hear about and want to mention.
All right, so
Eric?
we can open it up to questions now.
Eric, when you need to post the grades, then you just go back in to those 3 dots and post grades. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
You can also set this to never post a grade until you actually go in and click post. Some people like doing that. Basically, it just never posts an assignment's grades until you've had a chance to go in there and actually click post.
I think it's kind of dangerous, but it's a possibility.
Yeah. I like that, especially if you have a quiz where some of it is auto-graded and some of it is not. It's a really good thing to hide those scores because students kind of freak out like, what? I only got half the points? Well, it's because you haven't graded the whole quiz yet. So that's a good one to hide grades on. And I sometimes forget to do that beforehand. Other questions?
I just have one that I should have been paying closer attention to. I just transferred, like that other gal did, I just transferred more content from my sandbox today, and now they're all in the imported folder.
Mhm.
And I just, so if I go into assignments, how did you grab them and move them again?
So you can drag them between, got a lot here. You can drag them like this if it's just like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
If it's a bunch, look at that assignment, Cara, proving Cara wrong again. You can, like, let's say I want all of these formative ones to go in a different category. You can move the contents by clicking on that, and then it will dump all of them into a different category.
Okay, I got it. And then I can go in and delete. I did catch that part. Okay. All right, I will try that.
Yeah, it's good to have those clean because it does, like I said, when a student clicks on their grades, they do see any of the assignment groups that you have listed there. And I've seen some where it's like 7 or 8 and only maybe 2 of them are actually being used.
Got it. And then as I go in, if I move them all into homework, when I go in and assign it, if I put it that it's a concept check or a test, it'll go into that group, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So if you're in an assignment and you're editing it, you have the option right here to choose which one it's located in.
Correct. Yep. Yep.
All right. We're at 3:01. If you don't have any other questions, you are free to go. Thanks for coming.